Hello everyone and welcome to another Speed Paint. This week I'm redesigning some old magical girl/boy OCs that I used to have back in 2009. They came from my first ever animated series that I was trying to do, and I had made half an episode for this. The characters I do still love. You may or may not recognize some of them. They were based on my first OC group that I had, which is what Jaden Unshaken is also based on. So some of these characters will look a little bit familiar, but that is because they came from the same source. However, I do not consider them the same characters at all, and I do this a lot. There's a good few groups of characters that I have that are based on that first group of OCs. I just love that group so much, and a lot of those character types so much that I like to just take from and reuse them, and I change them a lot when I do that. A lot of the times, they look so completely different that it's unrecognizable, or they act so completely different. I love to take inspiration from that old stuff. Anyway, so what you're seeing on screen right now is the main character from that Magical Girl series. She was based on the OC from back then named Kira, and I still have that OC pretty much as she was back then because she has always been one of my favorite OCs. Even back in 2007 or 2008 when she was first created, I had a folder that was only just for her where I would draw so many pictures of her. So yeah, basically I just love her. For this particular series, I decided, I was like, well, she's gonna be the main character now. And she was. Anyway, so my idea with this redesign was I would actually take some of the core personality traits that this version of Kira had and sort of try to emphasize them more, because when I redesigned her for this series back then, I did give her different personality traits. Her magical girl look didn't really reflect that. I sort of still based her magical girl look on her old self. So for this, I was like, okay, I'm gonna take the core parts of her that were actually part of this character, which was she was really sweet, really kind of daydreamy, she loved reading, and she loved cats, which is obviously, if you can see the cat ear and tail. But I wanted to remove that because I still have the original Kira, and that version of her has wolf ears and tail. And I was like, the design is so similar now that it's like, I just wanted to change it so that I could have some different characters. But I do keep the silhouette of the cat ears and tail by giving her the little pointed buns and a magic ribbon whip thing as her weapon, which can signify the tail. Also, in 2013 or 2014, I did redesign these characters. You probably saw the elf version. I was like, I'm gonna get rid of the cat ears, but I kind of still want them to be, magical and stuff. So I decided to keep the elf ears from that one redesign. And I think it was a good idea, because then I iterated off of that and had the idea to make the magical gems that they had be little elf souls. And when I say elf souls, it's not like how you would think a D&D elf. It's more of those kind of little magic elves, the ones that, scurry around and stuff. That's kind of how I've picture how they get their powers, and that's why their magical forms all have elf ears for this. So the story that I remember from this was actually that, the main girl and the main guy, they were pretty close, and the main girl, she ends up getting sick, and the main guy, who was the second character to get redesigned here, he ends up getting her a gift. He gets kind of lured in to an antique shop where he buys this fancy jewel set. He basically gets tricked into it. Anyway, so he ends up giving it as a gift, and those end up being the magical girl gems. Obviously with this redesign, it's gonna be different. I decided that I would have one or two of them actually work at the antique shop, and that's when they get the magical gem item, and that's how it gets found. I do love the old story. It's just that I also thought that if they worked at an antique shop, then maybe there's some monsters or spirits attached to these antiques that they need to fight, and I thought that would be kind of fun. Some of these characters, I'm having a little bit of trouble connecting them to the story that I have for that, the whole, they work at an antique shop. Oh, also, I did switch around some of the colors. As you can see, the first girl, I changed her magical girl color into pink and red. And first of all, that's a very common magical girl main character color, but also her civilian form has the pink and the lavender, and I was like, well, I'll just take from that. Because again, Kira is already always in orange and stuff. And actually I have another character that's sort of based on Kira that still wears orange, and I'm just gonna have all the same looking characters, so I need to change some colors here. Anyway, so the girl that ends up being orange, who had the little star as her gem, it may be obvious, but she was based on Amy, and I thought swapping her with orange would work just as well. her character, I do have an excuse for why she would be there. I felt that she would sort of go to the antique shop to look for antique books. And I did say, the main character girl, she loves books, but I thought maybe she works at the antique shop and in her spare time as she's sitting at the counter, she's reading her books. But anyway, so this girl based on Amy would be coming into the shop just to look for antique books now and then, basically, and I thought that would be a good excuse to get her to go. And also I felt like her and the main girl would make very nice and cute friends. I mean, obviously they both have the interest in books. I thought maybe if the orange girl would come and be looking for books, they probably would strike up some fun conversation, maybe become BFFs, all that stuff, and that would be really cute. And of course, her stopping by more often than just to look for books would probably get her mixed up in the magical girl stuff. Also, I did just want to say, this girl, and there's another girl who shows up later in this same video. I made these characters and all their stuff before I, had my gay awakening and all that kind of thing. I was like 13 or 14. It was before all that. And yet still, those two girls were just very not straight. And I'm still going to incorporate that into the new version. It's the blue girl who will show up at the end, if you are wondering. The next character that'll show up is actually going to be one that will be wearing green. I know there's no green on that character, but I needed a green one. I was realizing as I was redesigning these characters, I didn't have green, so I decided, well, I'll give you a totally random color, which makes you even further different than the original character that you were based on. First of all, you probably noticed I transed his gender. Maybe you didn't notice, but I did. He's a guy now. In a trans way, not just a I changed it way, which I have just changed it before, but this time he's trans. Anyway, so I do not have an idea for why he would go to the antique shop. Maybe he is related to the person who owns it. I mean, I literally just thought of that, and maybe that could be it. He's a very hyperactive character. I obviously really changed his magical design from the last one that it was, even though I do really like how it looks in the original with the yellow sleeves that have kind of a slit in them. And of course I love the socks, I kept those. But otherwise it's pretty different. He's probably the most differently designed character of all of them. Oh, and when it starts getting into the coloring, of course I gave him trans colors, which I don't do every time. It just kind of fit for this one, because, the original design had that red coat. I was like, oh, well, I'll give him pink, and then there's white, and then, well, the pants can be blue, and oh, that's trans. It's just convenient, Let me have this. But I love his new design with the magical version. I never really liked him as a character back then. So to now have this completely fresh feeling character, I'm just really happy with it. Also really love his hair. I think it's really cute. And the design that his magical form has is very for me. And then the last person who wears the blue, the one that I mentioned sort of has a thing going with the orange girl. She also, I rethought of as this character is trans. She's based on the character that Jaden was based off of, which you could probably notice by the hairstyle. But their personalities are so vastly different. I mean, you could probably tell just by looking at them. And then also, the idea with her was that she was very sporty, and I thought, well, just give her a lot of muscles. That would be really fun, because I was realizing as I was getting to the end of these designs, I was like, oh wait, nobody's really buff or anything. I should have a buff character. Of course I thought that. I like buff characters. Anyway, so I decided to have her like that, and I thought she would be someone who does a lot of hiking, and I thought maybe she found something as she was hiking, and she thought, oh, this might be worth something. I'm going to take it to the antique shop, and maybe they could tell me something about it. And that's the excuse that I would give for her to kind of get involved with the magic stuff. So I thought that would be kind of fun. So that's sort of the story that I have for them now. The old one, I said how the main girl was sick. Literally, I did not have an idea for how the other characters got involved. They just happened to be a friend group. And despite being a friend group, they were not very nice to the main guy. They would tease him all the time. And that's because he had a big crush on the main girl. Anyway, I mean, this iteration of him does still like her. I'm going to keep that. I still love that. So they all do kind of have a power, and you probably saw their weapons show up after the fact of the recording because I ended up thinking of them later. So, the main girl, she has the ribbon thing. I'm thinking she probably has some sort of buffing powers. I don't actually know what specific power to give her, unfortunately. If you have any ideas, I would love to hear. but otherwise buffing as in like healing or giving strength to others. Obviously, the main guy had a sword. He actually had like wind powers, so he would have wind as the magic element of his attacks. You know, the orange girl, she has the bow and arrow, and I thought, you know, flaming arrows, that's cool. The green guy has these little wand things that shoot electricity and stuff, and they also kind of, for a bigger attack, they would kind of have like a line of electricity between them, and then the attack would come. I just thought that would be kind of cool. And then the water girl, obviously, she has a trident. So I ended up having so much to say about these characters. I did not realize that. I'm gonna have to do another video on these characters another time to talk more about them, because I still do love them and would love to chat more, I think. I already want to doodle them again. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed my redesigns of these magical girls and the reworking of how their world and story goes. I may try to do another video on these characters, we'll have to see. I'll see you in the comments. Have a good day.